This is Karen with newclevelandradio.net, and it is time for Avoid the Maze. And today's subject is about business, working, changes, lifestyles. Um, and I think my guest, Mark Herschberg, has a lot to say about it. You will notice in the show notes, we have a link to his website and how you can contact him. But as I read up about you, Mark, one thing I was like thinking, we're going through some huge changes in life right now. And a lot of those changes tend to be in the working world. Some of us are back out in the world actually working. Some of us are doing a hybrid, and some are just still at home working or making the choice not to work. How can you not work in today's society? So, welcome to our show.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to share some tips with your audience.
Very good. So tell me a little bit about your journey. What got you to delve into all the statistics that have to do with business and how business grows and how individuals can grow in a business?
Well, I've had these dual careers. I started my primary career when I came out of MIT in the 90s as a software developer. I started doing startup companies. Early on, I realized I wanted to become a CTO, a Chief Technology Officer. Now, to get that position, to be in charge of all the engineers, it wasn't just about being the best engineer I could be. There were all these other skills I needed: leadership, communicating, team building, negotiating. And no one taught me these skills. They're not covered in most college curriculums. So I had to develop them in myself. And in doing so, I realized these skills are for everyone, not just for the executives at the company. So I started training up my team. Around this time, MIT had gotten feedback from companies saying, these are the skills we want to find, not just in your students, but in everyone we hire at all levels of experience, but we can't find that. So we started the Career Success Accelerator program at MIT, where I've been teaching the past 20 years. So I have my primary career as a CTO, where I've been helping startup companies and Fortune 500s who want to be innovative to build new technology products. But then I've also been teaching at MIT and elsewhere for 20 years. And then, of course, turned that into the book, The Career Toolkit. So I've had these two careers for the past few decades.
Well, one of the things that I can say is um, my youngest son, who is now 31, his biggest complaint when he went to college was he wasn't really taught how to take those courses and implement them in finding a job and in working a job. And he has floundered for the last 9 years. But he, somewhat like you, has decided to go out and research and look things up and try to become a more rounded person rather than just have a degree. So tell me a little bit about this toolkit. Is that what the toolkit helps an individual with?
That's exactly right. There are 10 chapters, one on each skill. And again, these are skills not just what I dreamt up one night, but the skills companies are saying they want. It begins with chapter one, focuses on how you can create and execute a career plan. How do you figure out where you want to go? And then how do you create a plan to get there? And how do you continually use it and revise it? The other two chapters in the first section are on working effectively, skills like managing your manager, understanding corporate culture, and how to interview, both from the candidate's perspective, but also many of us interview once we've been hired, we're interviewing other people. That's never taught. The second section of the book is on leadership and management. So how do you lead? What's the people side of management and the process side of management? And those skills, by the way, apply to all of us. Even if you are a new college grad, you're not managing everyone, or you say, I don't want to ever manage anyone, these skills still apply, even if you're not saying I'm going to a position of authority. So they're universal skills. And then the third section of the book, that covers communicating, negotiating, networking, and ethics. And these are the practical skills that apply across all different jobs in all different industries that companies want to see in their employees.
Well, communicating is a big issue in our society today. At least I think so. Our language has changed almost overnight. What you could say previously, you can't say today. Um, and so I notice myself sometimes just walking on eggshells around people because I don't want to be politically incorrect, but I also don't want to come across as if I don't even know what those words mean today. So how do we start in that communication area?
The real fundamental problem that we've had in communication is that all of us come with these different mental models. In fact, you even bring some of this up. Now, this is a trivial example. I remember a professor of mine after class asked his students, where could he find a fag? Now, that is an offensive word here in the US. He's from the UK, where that is slang for a cigarette. Now, thankfully, we heard his accent. There were enough students who knew what that meant because they
Sure.
came from a country that speaks British English, and no one got offended. It was obviously just a usage of terminology. That's a trivial example, but it gets more subtle when we're in meetings and I explain something that's important. I say something like, look, we have to really minimize risk. Okay, yeah, minimizing risk. That sounds good. What risk? Are we talking about the risk of failure, or are we talking about the risk of not launching on time? Because those often are at odds with each other. And so, very often when we communicate, we're not communicating that sufficient model of what's in our head. What do I mean by risk? And so, in the communication chapter, I really break down how do we focus on taking what's in our head and explaining that in a way that others can pick up and get what we mean and not just their interpretation of the words.
And you know, speaking of that professor, many of us come from so many different cultures that words are used interchangeably, and sometimes we don't even think about it. And there are certain words that we know are offensive, but certain cultures are allowed to use them within their own little grouping. And so sometimes we think, well, if they can say it, why can't I? But we can't. So is that something that also is identified, that just because you hear a word or hear a message doesn't mean that you can repeat it yourself?
I don't have a universal answer for that. And to be fair, I'm not a DEI, diversity,
Okay.
equity, and inclusion expert. But I would say as we face these issues in the workplace, we need to recognize that most people are not ill intended. Perhaps if there's a Klansman in your workplace, well, maybe. But most of us, we're not trying to offend other people. We come from our backgrounds, we mean well. And so, in general, we want to approach it with, okay, let me first assume you didn't mean to say something offensive. And let's talk about maybe you just don't know that that term is offensive or the meaning has changed. There's a quote that I love in business. It's referred to as Hanlon's razor. It's misattributed to just about everyone in history. Never ascribe to malice that which can be explained by mere stupidity. We often get into spats with other people because say, oh, how dare you say that? Or you're sabotaging my project. But in fact, you're really trying to do the right thing. We just had a misunderstanding about what that right thing is, or you didn't realize that particular statement could be interpreted a different way. So always, anything in work, from something you hear someone say to even how someone's engaging with you, default to let me understand why. Let me assume stupidity, not malice, that they didn't understand what I know versus they are intentionally trying to cause harm. And that's going to avoid a lot of conflict.
Well, it certainly it makes sense. We just have to um, be a little bit more aware of our reactions to certain things too. And like you said, don't always make those wrong assumptions. And I know I have in the past myself. I certainly try to be more open, especially and I've had it in the podcast too. Somebody will say something and I'll think, well, we weren't going to go down that road. And I'll just ask, where's this coming from? Make sure that I understand it so our listeners also understand it. I'm not going to throw it under the rug because that's not fair. There may be, something vital that we need to discuss. So before we came online, I mentioned to you that at least I'm noticing here in the Cleveland, Ohio area, that since the pandemic, since many people being sent home without jobs, a lot of people don't want to return to the workforce the way it was pre-pandemic. And so there's lots of job openings. And my question to you is, how do we get back to a more normal state where people find the value in going back to work?
Great question. There have been lots of theories as to why people aren't working. Early on, people said, well, it's because we're offering too many unemployment benefits. But of course, we saw as those benefits ended, that did not drive people back to
Right.
work. They weren't being lazy. There are some theories that it's due to concerns about childcare. We're particularly looking at numbers of women who are mothers who are staying home with their children because they can't get childcare or they're concerned about safety. We're going to find out in the next few months, as now at the time of this recording, the vaccine has just been approved for children 5 to 11. So we presume a lot of kids will get vaccinated. Will their parents be more comfortable sending them off to daycare? We're going to see that in the next few months. Or is it some sea change where people say, I don't want to work? And it's probably some of all of these things to different weightings. In this latter case, people have certainly started to ask, why am I putting up with this? This job did not make me happy. It wasn't paying a lot. Is this really what I want to be doing with my life? I am hoping that we as a society are starting to say, you know what, we should ask, how does this job make me happy, not just give me money? And what will make me happy? What do I want in life? Because maybe I don't need a high paying job. I just need sufficiently paying, but I need some flexibility for it. Or I do need a lot of money and I'm willing to put in the work for it, and that's acceptable. People are more conscientious about not just saying, I want this job because it pays a lot.
Right.
So what I think we're going to see is people are going to be asking new types of questions during the interview process. Not just, okay, tell me about the company and what does it pay? But people are going to start asking questions like, what's the work environment like? How do you support your employees? Can you give me examples of how you have supported your employees? Tell me about the company culture. Do you listen to your employees for input? Give me an example of a time where employees suggested something and the company implemented it. How did you help your employees during the pandemic? How are you going to help me forward my career, not just in the next year or two, but as I think ahead, 5, even 10 years, maybe at your company, maybe it'll be somewhere else, but how are you going to help develop me towards the future I want? And these are questions the more astute employees, the better qualified employees will be asking, and that should hopefully lift up for everyone, that it's no longer just, well, if you work here, we'll give you a paycheck. It's finding a fit on multiple dimensions. I'm hoping we get to that change.
Now, there once was a time as person being interviewed, not being the interviewer, that those questions would have been unheard of. I remember the last job that I interviewed for corporate America. Um, it started out as part-time. I knew it was going to move to full-time, but I was told going in, don't ask when it's going to go to full-time because they'll stop talking to you. And I thought, well, that's quite interesting because you're telling me it's going to be a movement. I can only take this job if I can deal with that time frame. If I can't, why am I going to sit here, waste their time with my time? And I remember asking it, and one of the two people interviewing me looked at me and said, well, if you're not happy with the part-time position, you'll never be happy with the full-time. And I thought, well, that doesn't really make sense. I'm looking at this for the future. I'm looking at that full-time. I already know what the position is. I want to do it. I know I can be good at it. But I don't know if you tell me this is going to go on for a year, it's part-time, if I'm your right candidate. And the person who didn't like the question actually walked out of the room and let the other person interview me, and I got the job. But from that point on, I really was hesitant about asking any questions about going forward. I just became one of these, I became a machine. I just worked And after 10 years, I just went into, um, to talk to HR, and I said, I'm not happy anymore. And basically said, there's the door. There was no conversation. And that's, I look back at that, but I think today we need to have those conversations.
So that question was a huge red flag because when the person interviewing you just assumed, oh, well, it must be because something about the nature of the job won't make you happy. Said, oh, if you don't like doing X hours of it, you're going to really hate doing 2X. And that's an assumption. That's an example of that malice versus stupidity. Now, if that interviewer had said, okay, well, why are you asking? And you say, look, I have financial needs.
Yeah.
I can only live so long doing this part time. And if this doesn't move to full time, I have to do something else. It's not that you don't like the job. In fact, you apparently do like the job. You're wanting to do more of it. It was a different reason, but this person jumped to a conclusion. And worse, this person who may have been your future manager is jumping to conclusions about you. A good manager understands the motivations of the employees under her. Why does this employee want to do this? Is this employee motivated by money? Is this employee motivated by the nature of the job, by the mission of the company? There's lots of different ways, and understanding why helps me understand how to better motivate individual employees. Now, I've always been a believer that we need transparency. I've worked at a lot of startups. We were not 9 to 5 jobs. There were some long hours. And certainly in tech, we all understood
Right.
back in the old days, right coming up to a major release, you work some late nights. And I didn't want to pretend and say, oh, no, it's 9 to 5 and this is great, if that's not going to work for someone, because all I'm going to do is hire someone who's going to quit in a few months.
Exactly.
So I was always transparent. I said, look, a lot of my companies, the last 10 years, I said, we're working about 45 to 50 hours a week. We're a startup company. It's longer hours. I try not to push it more than that. If there's a server crash, if there's a release week, it could go a little more. I understand that. And then we, of course, give you a lighter week or two after that. We recognize you're putting that extra time. And that's a trade-off. If someone says, I'm not comfortable, thank you for letting me know. Let's recognize it's not a fit. So we really do want to be transparent, but too many people are doing the short-term thinking. I can't admit anything wrong here. I can't admit there's any problems at the company, or you have to work hard, or there's one jerk on the team who you might not like. Don't wait till after someone joins who will then quit shortly after.
Right.
So we have to have more transparent conversations, and we've been moving in that direction. I can certainly tell you in my industry in tech, because there has been a shortage of labor, even going back pre-pandemic, we were desperate to hire people who could write software. So we had to beg and plead and be honest, and they can ask questions and say, well, why should I work for you? I have all these other options. They were in the driver's seat, and not in a jerk way, but they'd ask questions about culture
Sure.
and fit. And now that we're seeing the rest of the labor market has leverage now because of that shortage, they too can start to ask these questions and go to what interviewing always should have been, which is a two-way street where we equally find, is this a fit for both sides?
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up, because one of the things that my husband does, he doesn't do IT at the level that you do, but he works IT, and he works through these software companies that send you to one place today and someplace else tomorrow. And he has realized in the last year that he has a little bit more say in which jobs he'll take and what he's willing to get paid for it. Not that he wants to rake anybody over the coals, but when somebody calls him, Friday morning at 7 o'clock and says, can you be in another city, which is 2 hours away? And he's just rolling out of bed, he has to know how to negotiate it. And he also has to know that, hey, you're doing me a favor offering it to me, but I'm doing you a favor getting myself up and getting moving. And I think these conversations are very important, because I know in the beginning of my career life, um, you know, whatever your job was, you just went and I did it. And somebody told me what to do. And if I moved up the ranks, I told somebody else what to do, but you didn't listen to each other. And that's extremely important today.
It is. And this is why these skills like communication, like the project management skills, I mentioned these managerial skills I talk about in the book are important even if you are not a manager, because many of us manage our peers. And I don't mean you say, oh, you do this. That's not managing, that's
Right.
commanding. But we have to work together on projects. We have to figure out how to divide up the work or trade things off, or okay, how about we work on and then we're going to sync up next Tuesday. Oh, no, you're off Monday, so you're not going to be done by Tuesday. Okay, well, can we do it Wednesday? That's project management. And so we all have to develop these skills, even if we say we're going to be an individual contributor our whole careers, because the nature of work went from that 1950s model of your boss tells you what to do, and you say yes, and you do it, and you hand it back. It goes from your inbox to your outbox, and you say, what's next? Look back to that inbox. Now we're a lot more dynamic, we're a lot more self-directed, and so we have to use these skills to be successful in today's workforce.
Are you seeing um, a certain age range where people are more adaptable to today's environment? Because I know I happen to be 71, so is my husband. And many times people
Great.
will so many people will say to us, oh, you're not going to be able to do the job. And it's like, I'm doing the job. Okay. I'm working numerous things. I'm keeping active. So why can't a 21-year-old coming out of college do the job, but I can't?
There is nothing inherent about a certain age being better or worse. I'd say it's a lot more mindset. Now, some people say, well, this is how I've always done it, and I don't want to change.
Sure.
You're more likely to get that with someone who has done it than someone who says, I'm 21, I've never done this, I don't know how. You tell me how you like it done. It could also be, certainly in my field, right, in software, we're changing very quickly. The technologies I use today didn't exist 10, even 5 years ago. I always have to keep up with new technologies. It's easier if you are 24, you don't have a family, you've got the extra time to look at this. If, however, you're in your 50s, you've got a spouse, you have children, they take a lot of time, you don't have as much free time to focus on your development. But that's a matter of personal allocation. It's not, oh, well, at that age, you just can't. So I don't think there's any reason you can't be equally adaptable at any age, but it's really your mentality and how you think about it rather than the chronology of your body.
And I couldn't agree with you more. Um, so this course that you teach at MIT, is it strictly only being taught at MIT? I mean, are other colleges looking at it and saying, hey, we gotta get on the right path?
Unfortunately, this class, as we do it, is only being taught at MIT. Now, I've seen some other universities, at the University of Connecticut, where I just spoke the other week, at University of Michigan, where I've spoken, they've started to add in programs where people are starting to address some of these skills. But in these classes, it's more done as a lecture. They bring someone in to talk about these and other skills and just say, by the way, you should pay attention. At MIT, we do it in a very hands-on way. I don't sit there and just lecture at the students. We have them do activities so they can experience it. Because a lot of these skills, it's not like learning accounting or marketing or physics where you just do the math, you memorize what the teacher writes on the board and say, okay, I got it. You have to do it. It's more like learning a sport. You have to practice it. So that's our very hands-on approach. Now, the book actually began as notes for the class. They want to give to the students and to give to other universities because I think we should expand it to others. We just haven't had time at MIT
Sure.
to work on giving it away. What I do offer is on my website, on the careertoolkitbook.com, there is a free download for how you can actually do this yourself at the university, if you happen to be there, more likely at your company. You can download the development guide and you can create these peer learning groups similar to what we do at MIT, similar to what business schools do. And you can create these peer learning groups where you will gain these skills. You do so by taking some content, and it could be my book, and you say, oh, we're going to read these 10 pages now and these 10 pages next week. But you don't have to use my book. You can use another book. You can use online articles, videos. You can use a great podcast like this one. Listen to the episode. And then in that group, you discuss it because it's in that discussion process. That's where you really come to bear, understand the skills, you really flesh them out more than just, well, that's what someone said. So you can create this on your own. There is no cost to doing so. And that's going to help you and potentially your whole organization develop the skills.
Well, and I noticed that when I was looking at the website, I saw the download and I thought, seriously, we're giving this away for free. But it's probably going to strengthen our economy if more people get involved and start, you know, bringing real life experiences into the workplace and understanding them. And I like what you said earlier, how sometimes we make these assumptions, you're a woman, you won't be able to do the job. You have a family, you probably are too involved. Oh, you didn't take a certain course in college, so therefore you don't have the knowledge that you need. Um, and I look at a lot of young people today who are saying, yeah, I went to college, but my degree is worthless. And it's like, but it's not, that it can be adaptable. And we just have to be more aware of each other and start talking.
A college degree, when done right, teaches you how to think. It doesn't teach you information. When I learned computer science, we didn't even use any core software language that was popular. The joke was if you want to learn C++, which was a big language at the time,
Right.
you had to take a course in the chemical engineering department because the computer science department didn't even teach C++. They said, look, we're not going to teach you whatever the current language is. That's going to change, but we're going to teach you how to think. And so whatever your degree is, it's not that you learned medieval history, because most people, unless you're becoming a professor, you're probably not doing that much with medieval history. But by learning that, you understood the patterns of history. You understood how societies evolve, how things impact future events, and that knowledge is timeless. So really all of our degrees have an approach. They have this mental model, how to think about problems, and that's going to carry you throughout your career. Don't worry about particular knowledge you learned. That's going to change, and you should always be picking up new knowledge. But your degree is never worthless if you learned how to think.
And I'm glad you said that because my 31-year-old son started out as a music major. That was between music and sports. That's all he ever wanted to think about. And he had a scholarship. We said, okay, go ahead. And he was a year into it and it was like, this is not the way I want to do music. I know how I want to do music. And we said, then don't waste your time. If that's what you think, take another course, take other courses that are going to lead you in the future. And even though he's kept up with his music and his sports, he has found that all those business courses he ended up taking truly, truly have helped him mature, helped him look at the world differently. And especially this past year, he's been able to look at things and go, now I understand where the workplace is. I see different ways that it can be fixed. And I know when I went to college, that's not what I thought. Okay. I was taking courses because I had to learn history, I had to learn math. And then when I finally graduated, it was like, what did I learn? What am I supposed to do with all this? And it took me years of working to realize that those courses really did shape me, but I didn't understand it at the time.
Yeah. So once you look at that lens, you get so much more value from what you have learned.
So you do public speaking engagements as well. So how can our listeners find you, maybe to invite you to do a public speaking engagement or come to one that you're hosting?
You can go to my website, thecareertoolkitbook.com. You can learn more about the book. You can get in touch with me, follow me on social media. You can also download a free app that has a lot of the tips from the book. It's just going to pop up one of those tips each and every day on your phone, so it helps keep them top of mind. Then there's the resources page as well, where you have that free download so you can create this guide. Because I know I can't go to every company. I don't have the
Right.
time to do that. I'd rather you learn, even if that means you don't hire me. I'd rather you be able to develop this program and use it. So the resources page has that and a whole bunch of other resources, great free online resources. I also link to some other books I recommend. All of this can be found on my website, thecareertoolkitbook.com.
Well, Mark, it's been amazing to just touch on a few of these points. I'm hoping our listeners realize that whether, you are at the top of your game in a business, or right now you're just floating through and trying to figure out what to do. It's so important to be open-minded about what's going on, listen to what's going on. You said something at the beginning, some of us go to work for a paycheck, and if that's what we do, and you're happy with that, and we all have to eat, so we all need a paycheck. Um, and some of us go to work because we, really want to make a difference. And even though that paycheck's important, sometimes we're willing to take a little bit less. Um, and as I told you, I do a weekend job, which is totally different from my podcasting. And there are some days I feel absolutely horrible that I'm taking a paycheck and not able to do my job. But when I do, I can't tell you how enlightening it makes me feel, and how the people that I'm working with get something out of it. So I look forward to reading more about your book, downloading some of this information, and maybe a year from now, things will just be back to a new normal, which means most of us are working at jobs that we really, really enjoy.
Let's hope.
Have a great day. Thanks for joining us.